timing goes with this, I'll try to keep it on track. This is actually fun, right? I'm a huge fan of social engineering. It's a really interesting topic for me. The psychology behind it is quite frankly just really fascinating. It's a part that I got involved in a while back. I just really enjoy kind of sharing what's going on. The good-looking guy on the screen, that's me. Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. You made my day. I've been in IT and security since back in like mid-1990s. Does anyone here remember Wildcat BBSs, FidoNet, stuff like that? Right. Okay. That's when I got into IT. That's when I got into security. Right. It was a different time for sure. Over the years, I've done a lot of different things. One of the things that I've noticed though over the years is the people are a great soft target, and that's never changed. You know, we see these breaches happen all the time, and it's the human factor that most of the time leads to the issues that we have in the organization. Unfortunately, it's an issue in an area that we as security people and IT people tend not to want to delve into, right? How many of you here have had an IT or security job where part of the interview was, how do you do with training people, right? Not many. We're hired for technical skills. I saw your hand over there, I know that. But we have a lot of technical skills, right? That's where we are. Unfortunately, we have to tackle the human problem, which is not an area of expertise or comfort for a lot of us, okay? Unfortunately, it is an area where a lot of people are getting in. So, my background a little bit. Any CISSPs in here? Okay, got a few. I was Director of Member Relations and Services at ISC Squared for a couple of years. If you got the email that said your annual CPEs are going up to 40 a year, my name was on the bottom of that. Don't throw anything. 40 a year. All right. So, was involved in there. I was also the security manager for the 2nd Regional Cyber Center Western Hemisphere, which was the U.S. Army organization that did all the post camps and stations across North America. The network connectivity, I helped roll out the Active Directory for the U.S. Army, one of the largest in the world, etc., etc. And then, yeah, I'm old. So, custom sorts, that sort of thing. That's me. I worked for KnowBe4. Why does that matter? We do security awareness training and simulated phishing. That's our thing, right? That's our focus. We have 23,000 plus customers out there. What's cool about it is I get to hear all the stories from these people. What's happened, what they've been seeing lately. I get to see a lot of the trends that are going on. That's where I get a lot of the material for what I'm talking about here. It's fascinating to me, like I said before. The things that the attackers are doing to get inside folks' heads and get them to do these actions is mind-blowing. It really is. And the attacks are getting more and more sophisticated, right? We all know there's not a Nigerian prince waiting to hand out a bunch of money. What? I know, shocking to some. Usually not in this industry, though. So maybe we should talk later. But the attacks have gotten so much harder. As a matter of fact, my Uber driver here this morning, I was talking to him. He works, his other job is at a title company. They've had a rash of people hitting them for down payment redirections and things like that, okay? These are all attacks that are going on the social engineering side for people. So, that being said, something we got to think about. This is, this guy, he's pretty new to the scene, Sun Tzu, right? All warfare is based on deception. And there is some argument in the community about whether we should take it as warfare, blah, 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 right? Might be a little bit strong. Well, let me tell you something. Here's the deal. A lot of these attackers that are out there, these are not the kids in the basement drinking Mountain Dew, eating pizza, okay? That's not what's happening. These are organized groups. There are also groups that are using funding they get from these phishing attacks and these scams to fund military actions, terrorist groups, things like that as well, okay? This is not really a joke. It really isn't. And it may only seem like, oh, a grand here, a grand there, whatever. It's not a big deal for our companies. But the money is being used in bad ways. So I will defend that this is more serious than just losing a couple of bucks to someone who's going to have a Ferrari over in the Middle East or whatever, okay? This stuff is really, really pretty serious. But the fact is, deception is a key part of these sorts of attacks. There's different ways to deceive, and we'll go through some of those. That's where it's going to get fun. right? So, what we know, okay, well, we'll get to that. 98% of attacks rely on social engineering. Attackers go for the low-hanging fruit. If you've ever had a red team in your organization, wow, that's really not catching up with me too well. If you've ever had a red team do an attack in your organization, what you'll find is basically if you allow them to take the social engineering side and attack the people, they are almost always going to be successful in what they do. We've gotten pretty darn good at doing our outer perimeter, right? Internet in, that zone right there. Where we fail a little bit still is on the internal side of things. Okay, so once you're in the network moving around, that's a lot more open than it is from the outside coming in. We also fail on the people side. Okay, just to give you an idea, we did a survey or we did numbers on this. This was 6 million users and 11,000 organizations, so it's not a small survey size. The average click rate for these 6 million users was 27%. And if you look at some of these different things in here, I mean, energy and utilities, 31% click rates. Again, this is pretty significant stuff, right? We have to take this sort of stuff seriously when it's hitting our organizations like this. If you have another security control in your organization that has a 30% failure rate, what do you do about it? You fix it, right? Or you replace it. Don't really want to go replacing all your people, though. That gets expensive real quick, right? So we were going to fix it. Anyways, it's pretty eye-opening when you see the numbers out there. We're going to talk today about perception versus reality dilemma, focus redirection, psychology applied to phishing, and how we can defend ourselves. So, perception versus reality dilemma. This is kind of fun, right? Our brain's job is to filter, interpret, and present reality. Now, the fact is, throughout our lives, we build filters. We may not realize it, but we all have filters that come into place when we receive information. Okay, when we see something, we hear something, we expect certain outcomes based on our life experiences. That's what these filters are. Okay? So we see something happen, we expect another thing. That is a vulnerability that we all carry with us. If people can take that and exploit that vulnerability and have us focus on the thing we expect to have happen while something else is going on, that's a problem for us. Now, I love this. This is it's hard to say this without doing the voice, but the CIA Manual of Trickery and Deception, right? I love this. It's pretty interesting. You know, there's a couple things in here, and one of these things here, right here, we're talking about using our brain strengths against us. The context of this is, you know, basically you go into a place and you want to talk about something that may be a little sensitive with somebody around you. Your mind is going to look around the room and see if people are paying attention, okay? The person that's sitting there that looks like they got run over by a truck, they've had a really bad day, they just want a beer and stare at the wall, that person your mind is not going to see as a threat, as opposed to the alert person looking at you, looking around, keeping their eyes open, all right? This is our mind automatically doing this, okay? So, by, you know, looking a little bit disheveled, looking like you've had a rough day, but still being attentive, you may be able to pick up some information. One point here. Our mind here sees the person, the alert person on the left as a threat, and the person on the right as a non-threat. In the case of a zombie apocalypse, that's going to be flipped. This is going to kill most of us, okay? It's exactly the opposite. But it's something to consider how easy it is to kind of mess with that. Now, there are people that still go, oh no, you know, whatever I see is real. Whatever I hear is real. And they want to argue that sort of thing. Well, we've had some pretty interesting things happen in the past couple of years that have kind of opened our eyes to that. Right? There's a new one going around with like some flip-flops, right? But what color is the dress? Well, I saw blue and black. My wife saw the white and gold. And we're about ready to go blows at it. You know, I mean, we're going to fight over this thing. And some of that is our physical characteristics seeing this, or like the Yanni or Laurel audio track. Both were in there, but our filters would only pick up one of the two, generally speaking. Now, if I tried real hard, I could kind of get a glimpse of the other one, but not really, right? The things we see and hear aren't necessarily the whole truth. We've got to get that through our heads. We've got to open our minds to that a little bit. and be able to think outside the box when it comes to these sorts of things, right? Have an open mind to what's going on. Now, if you can leverage an attack based on these filters, again, like I said, you can be pretty darn successful, all right? So, we'll talk a little bit here about focus redirection. Focus redirection is an interesting one. I'm going to do something that not very many presenters do. This is fantastic, guys. I've been working on this skill for years, okay? It's a card trick, okay, in a PowerPoint. So here we go. I want you to pick a card. Pick any of those cards, any card at all with that card. I'm going to make it disappear here in just a second. Everyone have a card picked right now, right? Okay. So if it moves, okay, there we go. I'm betting that card is gone. If anyone says that card is not gone, you're a liar. And I can prove it. So how do we do that? The card's gone, right? Well, it's actually not all that hard. I swear my clicker is not working with me today. We started with this deck. We ended with that deck. What do you see? They're two completely different groups. But they're designed in such a way with the patterns and the colors based on the different cards to make you not realize that. Okay? Your focus is on, this is my card. This is my card. In the meantime, we moved the whole truck out from underneath it. And a lot of people don't notice that because that's not where our focus is. It's not on the big picture part, it's on the small part. So if attackers can get you to focus on one thing over here while something else is going on, they win. That's a key to this, right? We just changed the whole rules right there. We just changed the whole deck out. Here's another one from the CIA Manual of Trickery and Deception. Anyone here in here a smoker? You don't have to raise your hands, but I used to smoke, right? And I can tell you this right now. If somebody is holding a ball of fire in front of your face, your focus is on not lighting your face on fire, quite frankly, okay? Keeping your eyebrows out of the fire, that sort of thing. This is designed to like drop things in people's drinks. So you light their cigarette while you're doing that with the other hand, you can drop whatever you want in their drink, you can do whatever you want, right? Because you have their focus on this little ball of fire in front of their face. I can tell you from experience they could clear the table out from underneath me, and I would not have noticed, okay? Another kind of a trick, this again is taking your focus and directing it in one certain place. And we as humans, we have a great propensity to be able to focus on one thing and then ignore all of the other stuff around you, right? If you've ever seen, there was a Netflix series, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but one of the things they did, they actually took people's vision, and the center of our vision is about the only thing that is actually crystal clear. The resolution in the center of where we're looking is exceptionally high, but all around you, you actually lose that. We see things that we don't imagine, right? And so they did all these tests to see if you're looking at this person, you see these people over here going on, then what happens when you look at them? Is it what you expect? And they had guys in cheerleader outfits and stuff, and people didn't even notice because they were looking over here. The assumption was that these were what we thought they were, okay? But we do a really good job of focusing right down the middle, but not so much at the larger picture, even if we think we do, all right? That's what's important to understand behind this. Now, when it comes to phishing, phishing has evolved greatly over the years, and it's actually developed quite a bit of psychology behind it, okay? They've gotten better at what they're doing. There's whole industries on the dark web that are there to help support phishing. For example, these days, if you want to send out a phishing email, there are services on the dark web. If you're playing buzzword bingo, that's probably one of them, right? But you can submit the email that you're going to send out to these groups. They will fix the grammar, they will fix the spelling, and they will guarantee an increased click rate based on the services they provide. Okay? There are industries behind this that are out there that are driving this sort of thing. And there are also areas, groups that will help you develop these things. Okay? So when we talk about the psychology and phishing, right? what we're talking about is we're talking about the human vulnerabilities. This is what they're after. If any of you have not seen this show, Mr. Robot, you're definitely going to want to. Okay, it's a little edgy. Don't grab the little kiddos and sit down and watch the show, right?
Yeah.
Probably have some explaining to do. You know, like what's that thing he's shooting? Yeah. But ultimately, what's cool about this show is it is based on actual attacks. It is based on actual tools. It's not like the CSI Cyber where the guy sits down and he goes, okay, you know, ooh, we're through the firewall, and, you know, throws out a bunch of garbage words, you know, 2 minutes into it. Okay, this is real. And one of the attack vectors they use a lot is social engineering. Okay, and I love this quote from him. I never found it hard to hack most people. If you listen to them, watch them, their vulnerabilities are like a neon sign screwed into their heads. This is very, very true. Now, anyone here ever been to DEF CON? Okay, or, you know, there's several of them now. Chris Hadnaggy does a social engineering capture the flag at these things, all right? And basically what this is they set up a soundproof booth on a stage. It's got microphones inside that people can hear on the outside. And what they do is they get these folks, they get on the phone and they start dialing these companies. And they get points for information that they can gather from these people on the phone, okay? And, you know, they'll do things like you get so and so many points for finding out what antivirus they're running, or what badges they're using, or what their ringtone is. But they get points for this sort of thing. And what they'll do is they'll get on the phone, and in a lot of cases, they'll spend about the first 30 seconds of their 2 minutes figuring out how to approach this person. So they may call up and they may say, hey, you know, I'm from such and such a branch of your organization, having problems getting to the internet. I don't know, we have this problem all the time. I'm not really sure if it's our antivirus. Can you guys get to the internet? Okay, yeah, you can. All right. Do you have the same antivirus? Do you have the little yellow shield down there? Is it a red? Oh, okay, you have the yellow one. You run Symantec. Or they play that game. But one of the things that they'll do too is they'll push a little bit and see how these people are going to react. So they'll try some tactics like aggression. They'll be a little pushy and see if this person backs off or if the person pushes back on them, right? So if you're a little aggressive on somebody, like, hey, you know what, you're wasting my time, and they go, okay, I'm sorry. You know that's a vulnerability that you're going to be able to do. But if they push back on you, you may want to pull back a little bit more and maybe try a little helpful. You know, I'm sorry, I'm just stressed out. Gosh, this is all going down. I'm up for a review in a week. And those people may react favorably to that. So they'll play a little game with these people, trying to figure out which way they're going to do this attack. And it's remarkably successful. And it's easy. Within the first 30 seconds or so, you can usually figure out what type of attack vector is going to work on a person. That's the vulnerability they're talking about here. That's what they're talking about going after. Okay? It's wonderful when people just shut them down. Sorry, can't talk to you about that. But I actually love those. But most of the time, they can keep them on the phone long enough to start gathering information. It's amazing what people will give away through that. But we all have these vulnerabilities. So we're going to talk about OODA loop, and you'll see how this kind of ties together in a minute. The OODA loop is a model for decision making. This guy, if you look in his visor there, he's flying a couple of feet away from other airplanes. The OODA loop thing was actually designed in aviation, military aviation circles. That's where this came from, right? But this is a person who's flying a couple of feet away from people, going pretty darn fast, has to be able to make decisions and understand how those decisions impact things and adjustments very, very quickly so that they're not running into everyone around them, right? If you have teenagers that drive like I do, you know that making those sudden changes can be an issue, but when you're flying an aircraft at a couple 100 miles an hour, that's probably not a good idea. Well, the way the OODA loop works is it's basically 4 steps, all right? And the thought behind this is the 4 steps: observe, you look around you see what's going on there. Then you orient. Where am I in the midst of the chaos? Okay? Again, I go back to my kids driving. I go through this cycle a lot when my kids are driving. It is chaos. The third thing you do is decide. So now you've looked at the situation, you figured out where you live within this situation, and then you decide what you're going to do about it. And that may be nothing, and you may just be fine moving along, and then you do that action. Okay? You may adjust a little bit. You may, a foot this way, Okay, now you go back into this loop. You go, okay, I moved 1 foot this way. Let's look around us. Let's orient where am I now? Am I where I expected to be? I'm going to decide what to do about that. Maybe I went too far. Maybe I didn't go far enough, etc., etc. This is a constant loop that goes through our heads. Okay, we've now put a name to it. What's interesting about this is the first 3 parts of the OODA loop are our critical thinking functions. The 4th part being the action. All right. Attackers will try to bypass those first 3 portions, that critical thinking pieces of things, and go straight to driving an action in a person. All right. The quote on here is interesting. It's from John Boyd, the guy who founded this. He's talking from a military standpoint. But he's saying in order to win, we operate at a faster tempo or rhythm than our adversaries, or better yet, get inside the adversary's OODA loop. Such activity will make us appear unpredictable or ambiguous, thereby generate confusion and disorder among our adversaries. If you can get in the middle of that and mess some of that up, it messes the whole thing up. Creates confusion. All right. How many of us have heard of the IRS scams, right? Where they call up and they say, you know, if you don't pay me in iTunes gift cards by the end of my shift, we're going to arrest you. Okay? For all of us sitting here right now, we're like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, for so many reasons. First of all, the IRS guy doesn't care about his shift. That's not who's going to call the cops and have you arrested. Number 2, they're not going to take iTunes gift cards. Okay? We reason through that. But if you're a person who initially believes it is the IRS and that they are going to come after you, there is fear involved with dealing with the IRS. And if this person isn't aware of that, they have now bypassed those critical thinking parts where we go, it's stupid to think that somebody's going to do that. They've hit them in the emotions and they're going to drive an action. This is why people fall for those sorts of attacks, because they have scared them right through all of the critical thinking steps, using our emotions and driving them to an action. It's real easy to look at it from the outside when you're not there with the pressure on you. And go, yeah, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But they're really good at putting that on. No, I haven't fallen for the IRS. Okay. The ideal situation is to create that knee-jerk reaction. All right. So it's interesting. This is from our quarter 4 email stuff. Click rates based on different types of emails that go out there. And I always think it's fascinating to look at this. We get 39% click rate on LinkedIn emails. People will click on those all the time. And I'll admit, I'm one that if you send me a LinkedIn invite and you're not blatantly a recruiter, I'm probably going to accept your invite, right? I treat it very differently than I do Facebook. Facebook is a much more personal, family sort of thing for me, right? But people will click on the LinkedIn very quickly. What's interesting this last year is, in the past, I've actually seen increases in this up into the mid-50s because around the end of the year, 4th quarter, people are starting to think about getting a new job the next year. They're starting to think about that sort of thing. And they actually start being more and more involved in this sort of deal. This year was interesting that it wasn't so much. But if you look at some of these other ones, you know, these are credential phishes, password change, primary email change by Facebook. Those are a lot of times meant to instill fear. You get an email that said your Facebook password changed. You go, oh crap, I've been hacked. And so then you go put in your password and get hacked. Okay? It scares them into it. It's a fear thing, right? The free pizza one, I just fall for that anyways, because, you know. These are actually remarkably effective, though. You tell somebody, hey, we open a new Pizza Hut down the street. To get you in and check out our place, we're willing to give you a free personal pan pizza. People go, oh, I can understand that. I can believe that. They'll click on that. But, you know, login alerts, new voice message, a friend tagged a photo of you. Now, that's always an interesting one, right? We've seen that turned into a number of different things. We've seen it photo, we've seen it video. You end up with a message saying, hey, I tagged you on a video or whatever in here, and you click on that, and then you have to download a codec. Always a bad thing. Okay, to view the video. You see that go on a lot with those sorts of things, but the psychology behind this one is actually kind of funny because Your friend tagged a photo of you. First of all, we live in an area or in a time where we want to know about these things. We're used to having the information very quickly. We look at this and we go, okay, so I got tagged in a photo. I want to know what's out there for me, right? On the flip side, let's say it's the day after St. Patrick's Day. Things got a little crazy the day before, right? And you're hoping the worst thing that happened is that copy on the copier machine of your backside. When people start tagging photos of you on party nights, these are highly effective during those areas around those times when that sort of thing goes on. People go, oh crap, what did they tag me in? Again, going for the emotions drives an action, all right? Password was successfully reset. I mean, all of these, you kind of see a trend here. Most of these are working on some sort of a scare technique that you go, whoa, I didn't expect that, holy cow. Somebody reset my password, I need to get in there right now and fix that before they do something bad. That's the motivation, the mental motivation behind that is, I need to get in there fast and fix this. So, how far are they willing to go? Well, attackers will do just about anything to bypass critical thinking. We saw a lot of these last year. This is an actual email that we got that was reported to us at a university. What's interesting is they did their due diligence in most of these cases to figure out who actually handled the email for the university, whether it was a Google or a Microsoft, and they tailored them however. And what it says is, it says, an emergency scare earlier reported on campus. Kindly go through the memo released and please follow the outline protocol. This was a credential phish. You click on that, you go there, you start logging in, and next thing you know, they have your credentials. Okay? This was done around the time of all the school shootings. This was a highly emotionally charged time for a lot of people, regardless of where you sit on whatever spectrums. Very, very emotionally charged time for people. Okay, we saw different variants down there: IT security alert, campus emergency, yada yada yada. They don't care if they hurt your feelings doing this. They're going to grab you in ways that are going to drive your action by bypassing that critical thinking. Two of the hottest human emotions that cause action are outrage and anger. If I can outrage you through something maybe political, I don't know, I think there may be some issues in politics these days, little, tension there, right? But if I can outrage you and I can say, can you believe so-and-so did this? This is terrible, blah, 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 blah. Come sign this petition now and let's stop this. If I can outrage you with somebody or something and then get you there, you'll put in all kinds of stuff. Your social security number to validate that you are the person who you are signing that petition. I can get you to do all kinds of crazy stuff if I can get you spun up on that. Outrage and anger drive action in humans. They're the top ones that you see. Fear will actually cause people to almost equally back away or get aggressive toward it. So you lose a lot of people through just fear. But anger and outrage is very different. Okay. How many of you have heard about business email compromise? Okay. $12.5 billion lost in the last few years, according to the FBI. The interesting thing about business email compromise attacks, and they're almost entirely social engineering based in most cases. Okay. They're very hard for technology to catch because, generally speaking, a lot of these sorts of attacks, especially when you get into the wire transfer fraud sides of things, there are no attachments that are infected. There are no links that are going to drive you to a bad place. Therefore, the technology totally skates right over. Okay? Lots of money being gone like this all the time. They tend to be low volume. They tend to be very, very focused, right? They use OSINT, open source intelligence, to find out about people, find out about how to do that. Even at the lowest level, you look on LinkedIn, you can build an org chart through LinkedIn pretty quickly. And you can figure out who the players are in the organization and turn around and use their authority to cause something to happen. Usually it's an executive because nobody wants to tell the CEO to go pound sand or to go to the, to go to their portal to change their information. They want to do it for the executive. So they use that authority to cause fear in people, fear that they're going to lose their jobs. and then they're likely, to not be able to feed themselves. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, being able to feed yourself and stuff is right above breathing. It's a pretty core one down on the fear side of things, and so they go after that kind of a fear that you're going to lose your job. Right? Generally speaking, there are no traditional tells in here. We'll go through some examples. But like right now, we're seeing a lot of these gift card scams. Anyone see a lot of that going on? Right? This has really been taking an uptick. Saw it a lot around the holidays that use holiday parties or, bonuses as a reason to get this. Basically, an executive in the organization reaches out to somebody and says, I need you to pick up a bunch of gift cards. Number usually ranges between 5 and 7. They'll say, I need you to get me the information right now. We're giving bonuses to good employees or whatever. There's usually a story behind it. The pretext changes a little bit. But they'll say, for example, we're giving bonuses to the great employees that we have, some people that really stood out. Go get me 7 of these $500 iTunes gift cards. Keep one for yourself because you're a great employee. Right? That's a psychology trick right there. And send me the other ones right away. Send them to me from the store. I need to get them from you. And people will do that. There was a case last year, one of the people that I was talking with said that their executive assistant did exactly that. Thought, hey, this is great, I'm going to be doing it. I'm going to use my own credit card to get the points on top of everything else, and then come to find out, it wasn't the boss. They wouldn't reimburse them because you should have known better sort of thing, right? Insurance typically doesn't cover these sorts of things, or a lot of times doesn't, but the money's gone. Boom. We are seeing a huge uptick in these gift card scams like this. It can be Google Play gift cards, iTunes gift cards, it doesn't really matter. But people need to be aware of this sort of attack because we're seeing more and more of it. Payroll redirection, okay? So this is when where an executive fires off an email and says, hey, I had my account, something happened to it, or they'll have a pretext story behind it. They'll say, something happened to my account, I had to change account numbers, I need you to quickly put my next direct deposit in this account. This is my new account number. And again, nobody wants to push back on the executive. So instead of telling them, go out to the portal and do it yourself, they'll go, okay, cool. And they'll now redirect at least one paycheck from an executive. Yes?
That happens to every superintendent in the state of Ohio for K-12 education.
Right. Yeah, I'll tell you what, ISDs and independent school districts and the education sector has been really hammered by a lot of these sorts of scams. We see that a lot in the ISDs. Okay? It's amazing how quickly this happens. The other thing they'll do is they'll do a similar one and they'll say, I need my last 3 paycheck stubs. They don't want to push down. They don't want to tell the exec to go to the portal. So they send them the last 3 paycheck stubs. What can you do with 3 paycheck stubs, folks? Open accounts. You can do all kinds of fun stuff. You can start an identity theft process through that. You also typically, through those stubs, are going to have their social security number. You're going to have their income amounts. You're going to have all kinds of cool information on that. Okay? So we see that one as well. Some of you may have heard of these tech support scams, right? It amazes me how many folks still fall for this. Hey, this is Microsoft. You've got a virus. We're here to help. Right? We all know better than that. But it happens a lot. I've heard of people in organizations that have an IT help desk that thought they did something wrong and didn't want to get in trouble. So maybe they had been surfing some places they shouldn't have on their work computer. They don't want it to go back to the help desk. So they will pay these folks, who then end up remoting into your machine and causing you all kinds of problems, owning your machine, off they go, right? People are still falling for this. Sometimes it's the fear of, I shouldn't have done that. Shouldn't have gone there. I need to make sure I don't get in trouble. But it works. Wire transfer fraud. So this is your typical wire transfer fraud. Starts from the bottom up because it's an email, right? What's interesting is a lot of these will start with something as simple as this. Are you in the office, from the CEO? There is nothing scary looking about that. And it's either, are you in the office, or did you get my earlier email? That's what I've seen a lot too. So the person who receives this email looks through their email, they don't see anything from the CEO, from the executive, and they go, oh crap, I missed something important from the executive. So they'll reply back and they'll say something to you know, sir, ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't see an earlier email from you. And the reply to that, because these guys will be waiting. Sometimes it's automated, sometimes it's a bot that'll throw it back. Sometimes they're just waiting for these. But the response will generally be something aggressive. I sent you an email this morning. I asked you to wire some money to this thing, and oftentimes it's you know, we're acquiring an organization. It's all hush hush, can't talk about it, or we're doing something like that. It's super hush hush. I sent you this morning. You messed up. I can't believe you did this. I need you to take care of this problem while I go in and fix your screw up. And they drive straight into that fear tactic on these people. These people are like, I am going to lose my job. I can't believe I missed this. And they will wire out money. Money goes out, boom, all over the place. It's a pretty scary thing. But we see this kind of money go out all the time. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. You've got to understand that. And the truth of the fact is, a way to counter this is actually very, very simple. It's a policy thing. You don't even have to buy stuff. You have a policy that says, before I transfer any amount of money more than XYZ, something that is, you know, an amount for your organization that is bad. And in a small organization, it might be $2,000. In a larger organization, it might be $20,000, whatever. But you say, I will pick up the phone and call that person on a known good number, not the one in the email, and get the approval. So you pick up the phone, you say, sir, ma'am, I'm sorry, I got this email from you, I just wanted to confirm. Now, it takes a security culture to be able to do that, because the executive needs to know you're not sending the money, and they need to know that you're going to call them first. But that's all it takes to stop these attacks dead in their tracks. You don't even have to spend big money on it. W-2 fraud, something else that's very similar. We see that usually around this time of the year, first quarter. Same thing. You say, hey, I need you to send me all of the W-2s for all of the employees. The bad guys take those W-2s, they file all the employees' taxes, and when the employee goes to actually file their own taxes, they find out it's already been done. The bad guys have made it so that every employee in the organization got a refund, which is a fantastic thing for everyone but that employee. Now, the employee has to mess around with filing all kinds of police reports, dealing with the IRS, sometimes getting an alternative tax ID, usually another PIN number to file with that moving forward. It's a nightmare. And usually takes about a year to sort it out where the person gets what they were due back returned to them. We see this a lot this time of year. You're liable to start seeing some news stories where people go to file their taxes and find out it's already been done. And that's usually here. And it's usually something where the executive says, I need you to send me all the employees' tax forms. I need to send them somewhere or whatever. It's almost always in a PDF format, too. A couple key things to look for. And then let's move on to clickbait. How many of you have seen this? Like on every web page we ever go to. This is all the ads are these days. But there's actually psychology behind these ads. Okay? It's the pattern interruption usage to create something based on the information gap theory. Now there's the Carnegie Mellon deal there, and I can get you all slides if you want after this. Okay? But that's the Carnegie Mellon explanation. Basically what it boils down to is we as humans have been trained in this generation to have information at our fingertips right away. Okay? We look at our phone, we know the information right away. Back in the day, when I was young, I had to go out, get on a bus, ride down to this place called a library, sort through a bunch of stupid little cards, find some numbers, maybe get a microfiche machine and spend the next hour, you know, trying to find the information. But now we have it instantly. We're used to that. We're trained like that. So what they do is they give you a little bit of information, but they deny you what you feel like is the important piece. Like what that cashier is doing at the supermarket. Ooh, okay. But they hit on these from all kinds of different directions. They deny you that. We're also a very social group now where if somebody throws up, you know, a joke on Facebook or Twitter and we don't know what was behind it, we feel left out. So we don't want to be that person that doesn't understand the joke. So we will tend to click on that and go into that. It's very, very effective. It works very, very well. That's why every ad you see these days is based something on clickbait. My favorite one down here. 5 things you need to know about clickbait. Number 4 will blow your mind. It's a clickbait ad for a clickbait article. Fantastic, right? It's come full circle here. It feels a little bit like Inception, you know, buildings are twisting around you. It's pretty interesting. So knowing this, how do we defend against this sort of stuff? Well, there's defense against the dark arts. This is my Harry Potter coming through, folks. Sorry, I'm a fan. But we have some technical things we can do to battle some of this stuff. And there's also the non-technical side of things as well, right? Email gateways. Oh, got ahead of myself there. Okay, email gateways. They are something that is very, very useful. All right, filtering email from bad actors. The sheer volume of attacks that come in every day is mind-boggling. I want to say last year it was Symantec. They said, I think it was 1.8 billion phishing emails every day for the month of June of last year. Okay? We have to block the sheer volume. Email gateways are great for that. They are great for handling the known threats. Okay? They're not great at the very targeted stuff, the spear phishing, the whaling, that sort of stuff. But for the mass, if you will, spam phishing that goes out to everybody, they're actually really good at that. And they help you not get swamped in that. Generally speaking, best of breed still allows 10 to 15% through. But that's a huge reduction right there. So you do need to have these things there. All right? Now, something else we've seen a lot is mail servers are not configured to battle spoofing. All right? Anyone can pretend to be the CEO and send something from your email address and nothing stops it, nothing rejects it. This is why I'm a big fan of like SPF records, DKIM and DMARC sorts of technologies, all right? SPF, the records are email authentication records. These are actually all TXT records in DNS. They're text records there. Basically, it says these IP addresses are allowed to send email from this domain. If it doesn't come from one of these IP addresses, you're going to mark it as something. You're going to mark it as failed or whatever, right? These help avoid that. DKIM does a similar sort of thing. It authenticates the sending mail servers through a PKI infrastructure, public key, private key infrastructure, okay? So you know that if it didn't come from those, if it's not signed right, it didn't come from one of those mail servers, again, you do something with it. DMARC is where some of that stuff gets pulled together and says, all right, if you fail one of these, first of all, which ones are you going to use? If you use one or both of these, if you fail these, what do you do with it? Do you tag it? Do you reject it outright? What are you going to do with these different ones? If you're a target of just a ton of emails, for example, SPF records work before the message body is sent. They work basically on the message envelope. You don't have to have the whole stuff come in. You may be able to reduce a bunch of junk just right there. I recommend you look into these. We found in one of the surveys that we did, we checked a bunch of mail servers, about 80% of the ones that we tested had nothing set up for SPF records, DMARC, or DKIM. So this will help them pretending to be your CEO. Multi-factor authentication, yes. Yes, I'm a huge fan. I'm speaking at BSides Nova, Northern Virginia, tomorrow, actually, on multi-factor authentication. Huge deal, okay? It's always better not to give up your credentials in the first place, but if you do, have some sort of second factor in there, okay? It's not foolproof. It can be bypassed. I did a demo once with Modlishka, which is actually designed to man in the middle these sorts of things. You can grab the tech stuff, you can grab their session from that and replay it and end up in a Gmail account or whatever you want to be. There are ways to get around that. But odds are, they're not targeting you at that level, probably. They're just going to try to get into your account. If you have a second factor in there, you know, the odds of them trying to clone your SIM card and go through all that, you've got to be a little higher in the infrastructure or the target level for people to put that much effort into it, quite frankly, because there's easier ones to get out there. My preference, SMS-based. If you can't get anyone to do anything but SMS, getting the text message, then go with it. That's fine. It's better than nothing. If you can get somebody to do that, maybe think about doing something like a Google Authenticator. It's on your phone, which you already have to receive the SMS message. It's more secure than the SMS side of things. My favorite, I love hardware-based stuff. I'm a big YubiKey guy. If you've ever seen them, little hardware tokens you use. I've got mine set up with PIV credentials or smart card credentials on a Active Directory domain. It's got certificates in there and all that. I love that piece of it. It does kind of suck when you hop on a plane, you fly off to somewhere else to do a talk, and you realize that you didn't bring that card that has that keychain on it. Makes it hard to get into your email. But MFA is a huge thing, right? It battles this sort of stuff where they sucker you into giving up your credentials. It battles credential stuffing, which is being done through all of these breaches where these username password pairs are being compromised. It handles a lot of those things. Again, not perfect, but a lot better. And then end user training and reporting. You got to teach people to be able to see these things. You got to teach them to be able to spot these things, to have better hygiene about these things. And one of the most important things that I want to get through people's minds are, give them a way to report once they see these things. There's a lot of tools out there. We actually have a free one. It's called the Phish Alert button. There's other ones out there too. You can have them email it to an email address. Sometimes you have to go back and get them to include the body and stuff, whatever. But what happens is users start to report these things. Let's say you're in a larger organization. You get 4 or 5 reports in 30 minutes. You know that you're a target of a campaign. You can turn around on the email servers, filter them, kill them, squash them, warn the group. Your users can actually become a censor for you when you're under attack as a campaign. It's something that a lot of people underutilize or underappreciate, but just by giving them a way to report these sorts of things to you helps tremendously in understanding what these sorts of attacks are going on with your organization. Okay? People need to understand if they're being manipulated. You know, greed, curiosity, self-interest, urgency. They'll all have urgency. Every single phishing email will have some sort of sense of urgency. They don't want you to have time to critically think. But fear or helpfulness, all of these things are being used. And it's important, what I tell people is, when you get an email, if it elicits an emotional response from you of any kind, take a breath and come back and look at it in a second. If it elicits an emotional response, be very, very careful with that email. So one of the things we train people to do, and I love this, we go on the red flags. You don't want to try to make your users super technical. Don't get them into looking at email headers and stuff like that. That's not their jobs, right? They're good at accounting. But you teach them like red flags. Things like, did I get an email at 2 o'clock in the morning from my HR department on a Saturday? Is that unusual? Maybe I ought to pay attention to it, right? If you get something that doesn't, the reply to address is different, the email address is a little weird, right? These are all things, these are just red flags. Not one of them is going to be like, oh, this is automatically. But these are all things you want to tune your users into looking at. They can look at them very quickly and be able to go, okay, something's wrong with this. And again, you tie that with an emotional response, it's a big deal. Now, earlier I showed you, this is what I want to get across. I grew up in an area where I always thought users were stupid for a long time. Let's face it, we've all used the term, you can't train users, right? I promise you, you can teach them. I promise you. You just have to do it the right way. You have to go about it a little bit differently. This is that same 6 million people, 27% click rate, 90 days, which is basically what we do is we train them and then we do simulated phishing attacks so they get a chance to practice on ones that don't screw up your whole network. But they were down to 13%, same 6 million people. At the end of a year, they're actually down to 2%. You can train users. We just have to do it the right way and not try to get all technical on it. That's the part where we always stumble and fall, is technical people trying to describe technical things to non-technical folks. So we have to be careful. What I tell people is, if you're going to do your awareness training, you want to take it seriously, get some of your human-focused people involved in that. HR, marketing. Get them involved too. And they can help make it so that the people will retain the information. Those are some of the key things. Something that I learned early on, midway in my career, is to start involving those folks that have those skills, that work with the human side of things, in order to get these messages to resonate. Because honestly, I'm not a great non-technical user trainer. That's just not where my skills lie, right? So you have to be aware of that, look in the mirror. Use those other resources, right? And when it comes to actually training, There's 4 steps that we found that works. This is whether you do it yourself or whatever you use, right? First thing you do is figure out where you are now. I'm a big believer in you can't manage what you don't measure. It all comes down to numbers. So you do like a baseline test, figure out where you're at. Then you train them on what to look for. Then you fish them. As they get better, you're gonna do the results afterwards of the fishing. As they get better, make it harder. Don't start off where it's so hard they get frustrated and give up. Give them a few in the beginning that they build confidence. They're like, oh, spotted it. It's a little fun. Make some competition. Gamify it a little bit. Whatever it takes to get those people so they're not afraid of it, and then you start ramping up the difficulty level. Believe me, it's not going to be hard to trick people most of the time in the beginning. For those of you that run these things in-house, when you first start running them, people will fall for damn near anything. You let them know that you're going to continue to do this sort of thing, they start being a little paranoid, which is good, and they start being better at spotting. So that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You can do it. Enjoy the next slide. Always happy to talk about this. We may have, maybe, I think we're past time right now, but if you guys want to talk to me about this later too, I'm happy to talk about it. I love it. I'm super passionate about the human side when it comes to what we're doing. Just don't forget to include your humans in your security program, because it will bite you right in the butt. It really will. So thanks again.